to do some studies. We also have a great relationship with ULI, the Urban Land Institute, and they've been really working with us on strategic intervention in certain neighborhoods where there might be a problem. They did this in San Pedro along 6th Street, and how can we actually encourage some growth in that area. And this number of years ago, they came in and they flew experts from around the world for a workshop that took place in over 4 days. And they came up with a great plan, having some of the best minds come up with this, and it's no cost to the city or the neighborhood. But they volunteered to do more of those plans all across the city. So we have some resources we can put people in touch with.
Do you remember what their recommendation was?
On 6th Street, it was multifaceted.
Well, it was to build all those high-rise condos, which are now going unsold.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they didn't forecast the market.
They were exactly wrong.
Yeah, well, I think. Yeah, I mean, I think part of it was that no one forecasted the downturn.
But I mean, if they're going to be doing more of those workshops, beware, because
Yeah.
obviously they can be seriously wrong.
Well, I mean, I think it's still improved that area in terms of what you see. Now a lot of them are apartments actually instead of condos, and their rents have been dropped quite dramatically.
Yeah, the view of the port is now gone.
Okay, Dee Dee. Where'd Dee Dee go?
She's here. She's there.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, thanks for your service. In Venice, yes, we have had quite a bit of experience because way back when I served on the first town council there, back in the 70s, we only had the Coastal Commission to rely on. The issue, and the Chief of Enforcement, Dave Kime, of Building and Safety, brought this up many years ago at a meeting I attended in the Wilshire District. Many conditions that are imposed on builders are unenforceable. Now, it wouldn't make any difference if it's for the builder or against the builder. When they're unenforceable, they create terrible problems. Of the many that we have experienced in Venice, one stands out in my mind. It went through the Plum Committee 1 hour before the City Council made it a part of the contract. Now that's, I think, not playing fair. But also, when a condition avoids a part of a specific plan of a neighborhood, there should be a public hearing to that particular issue. And I don't believe that is being observed. Thank you.
In terms of any specific plan exceptions or amendments, we actually do have a hearing process for that. But I agree, a lot of times, once things are past the planning department and they go through the legislative acts of the city council, it moves very fast. It's hard for our planners to follow. If you've been down to city council and you watch that board they have, it's like an organ. You know, numbers are more like Keno. Numbers pop up, they drop down, some are called specials, some aren't. Some have public hearings, other ones already have public hearings, and before you know it, you look and your item's been heard, adopted, sealed, and on to the next item. So I think more transparency in that process, working with the city clerk, would be really vital, because even for our staff, we can't keep up. And years later, they say, well, what was actually that final condition that was put on? And it's very difficult to unravel that record.
Paul, are you standing there because you wanted to say something?
Right, if there's somebody who's already filled out a card though.
No, cards are done.
Okay,
Now I'm
great.
going around the room. I'm working the room.
I just want to, first of all, thank you for coming here. The other thing is that you spoke a little bit about high-speed rail, and I realize, obviously, the implementation of that is way beyond your pay grade, all right? But nevertheless, I think there needs to be a voice of sensibility to step in and maybe try to redirect that program before it gets too far. Let me just say, a couple of years ago, I heard an excellent program on NPR, and to this day I have searched for a link for it and I can't find it, but the basic theme of it was we have to walk before we can run. Before we sink billions of dollars into a high-speed rail system, we should really think in terms of putting that money instead into a good regional commuter rail system. And I'm a veteran of commuter rail because I had a client once down in Irvine and I used to use it all the time. It was really rocky and bouncy and stuff. But by contrast, traveling in Austria, I use their regular commuter rail, not high speed, regular commuter rail, smooth as silk, fast, on time, beautiful. I fell asleep all the time on the trains. It was that good. But we would get more bang for our bucks by improving our regional rail transportation, commuter rail transportation, with dedicated rails, with nice smooth track that run on time, as opposed to a high-speed rail system. We would far more reduce traffic with that investment as opposed to a long-distance rail line like high speed. I mean, we're gonna knock out maybe 5,000 cars a day on the Golden State Freeway in the San Joaquin Valley, whoop-de-doo, okay? I'd rather wipe out 5,000 cars here within a heavy commuter region. So we really need someone at the city to kind of test the people, to kind of put the question to the people who are behind high-speed rail saying, look guys, let's rethink this, let's talk about a system that can get us more bang for our bucks and get people accustomed to riding rails, and then maybe we can talk about high-speed rail. Thanks.
Those are some great points, and the only caveat I have to that is, I think the regional rail system is something we definitely need to look at. In terms of the high-speed rail, the funding from Anaheim through LA has pretty much been secured for at least the first phase of that development. So part of that conversation, I think, is already beyond us. But I definitely encourage you to voice those concerns with the MTA board. We have local elected officials, county officials that sit on the MTA board and really challenge their thinking with some of the things you brought up are some great points. I think we need to take that into consideration.
No, local planning?
Yes,
Good.
SB 1818 data. Very important, as you know, as we've talked about. I would like again to seek a renewal of the commitment to get this SB 1818 data out to the public, Michael, because they're hidden time bombs. Gail did a terrible job. Jane Blumenfield did a terrible job. You now have an opportunity to cure that, make the city better longer term. We need that data. The city, and I'm going to get a Rule 54, I'm going to get something, but please, okay? Secondly, I just want to comment on the voluntary conditions issue, because the city, this is Rocky too, what we're dealing with under Carmen Turtanich. He ran under certain auspices and he's basically doing a 180 on the people. Voluntary conditions are enforceable, and the signature case to substantiate that is Lincoln Place, because that was a voluntary condition. What was it? A no eviction promise. The developers come in and bait and switch. I promise the community I will keep the tenants there, and then they get just give me the entitlements. I get the entitlements, and then, like you said, they forget about the promise. We had to go to court, 2 Court of Appeal decisions. Finally, we got that enforceable. City attorney somehow doesn't want to enforce that. So this is not directed at, because you obviously have to live within the auspices, but I got to tell you, the people are getting, not well served. So, and finally, I would encourage you to challenge neighborhood councils on these transportation issues. Mar Vista has a great bit of knowledge built in, Ken Alpern. You need the staff, you know what? Put the word out to neighborhood councils. You know what? We don't have the staff. This is the information that we need. This is what we can do. And also an endorsement by you of the effort by the neighborhood councils to develop the broader data on because you were at that meeting, Downtown Neighborhood Council, where the neighborhood councils themselves are developing their own internal computer mechanism so that everybody can tap in and we can get that data, and that will help your job easier as well. So that's my general comments. But in the SB 1818 data, please renew that commitment. We need it yesterday.
Great point. I mean, I'm all about transparency, you know that, Noel, and so if we have that data available, we'd be happy to provide it. Talk to Eva Warwick-Daniel, my deputy who's in charge of my data, and we'll produce the reports. I mean, I think we all know what they're going to say. Not a lot of units have been built, and I'm happy to show that. There's nothing I want to hide, so I'll be happy to give that to you. I mean, my only concern is I'm not sure why they didn't give it to you in the past. So if technology-wise we're able to capture that and not have to go out and start counting units and pulling old case files from Piper Tech that I don't have the staff to do, then we can talk about interns or a way maybe you can help me do that. But if it's something we just run through a query of our computer system, it's not a problem at all. Perfect. I'll follow up with her on that.
Thank you very much. I'm Cindy from Summerlahunga. Thank you, Michael, for being here, and thank you for the updates earlier, too. I have 4 things to ask about, and hopefully they'll be okay. One has to do with the case filings that neighborhood councils receive. We've been noticing that we don't get them until they're removed really fast. It's like they are held at city planning for some length of time. I don't know why. Maybe they're incomplete.